Alrighty, guys. Today, we've got two sessions to catch up on. The first session, a one-on-one session, the first of which I've run in a very long time. This was with just a single character, Bremril, who's got a schedule, or at least the player does, that makes it difficult for them to get in on some of the bigger group sessions. But I'm glad we were at least able to get in a little bit of something with catching up on what their character has been up to, and just like my thoughts on the one-on-one session versus the many player session. It is definitely a very different feeling as a DM. And the many person player session, it can often feel like the exercise in keeping 100 plates spinning. There is constantly just so much, everything to try to keep track of. And it's an exercise in just bouncing back and forth between everyone, making sure everyone is being able to follow through with the things that they want to pursue, and to try to give them at least something to do over the course of the session if it ever seems like they're not particularly currently like engaging with whatever is going on at the moment. And it can be very hectic, and it can be very easy to lose track of who's trying to do what thing, and or just what's going on in general. And it definitely requires a lot of like trust and communication and an understanding among everyone to fill each other in on what's going on, and like understand that things are going to be missed, and to try to just catch people up at any given moment with the most current like perspective that everyone should have of this, of what's going on in the story. The one-on-one session, a very like pleasant break from that just like insane like hyperness, that like high intensity that can come from just trying to deal with 100 players. This was like very elegant, had a very smooth flow of either asking a question and then having a response, or them having a question and I having a response. And it definitely felt like a linear, complete story where A, then B, then C happens. So, this session specifically, Bremril has decided to join the bandit gang, the Roadhounds. So, I guess it is convenient that last session they ended up not getting killed and slaughtered by the players. So, Bremril, in order to be initiated in, he has completed a heist for them. He successfully stole 500 gold pieces from the coffers of the count of the local town that they're in. And he was then offered a mission by a nobleman, the uh, um, the Lord of House Crevassier, Lord Felix, to recover the casks of his cognac that were stolen from him. And he worked alongside two other famous drunkards. The reason everyone here was, the reason the Lord had chosen drunkards for this mission was because the prize he offered them, the reward, was casks of this cognac. And we met Gerzerk of the Spirit Sauce, a dwarven shamanic type of figure that performs rituals and such with the use of alcohol. And we met Al Sarah, a drunken master monk, who I decided was a member of the school, the teachings that Humdu belongs to. And they figured out where this merchant caravan was ambushed from, and they talked to one of the merchants, went to this monastery, and had found out that it was a gang of imps that had stolen this and were sitting here gambling Bremril and his friends just jumped them. They fled relatively early on. While inside the monastery, they discovered that they were being tracked and that they have just been attacked by these Viking type raiders, the Marauders of Hezarath. And Bremril and his two friends were able to hold them off long enough for the Lord to return with some men at arms, and then with their forces combined, they were able to defeat these marauders. And Bremril had taken from the leader of the marauders this javelin, this lightning javelin, and Bremril, I believe he had offered the crates of chartreuse wine that he found in the cellar of the monastery for an additional cask of the Courvoisier cognac from the Lord. So he made off with quite a good haul by the end of this session. And by the end, he met back up with the Roadhounds, who had given him their gift, their curse of lycanthropy, and he now has the ability to turn into a werewolf. And I do think generally this might either be setting him up to either contrast and or be somewhat of a villain compared to what the current main party is doing. Alternatively, it's possible that he somehow turns this in such a way that he is able to make the Roadhounds allies or friends of the main group. That it remains to be seen. Is definitely going to depend on their future interactions. But they are generally a kind of murderous, sort of evil bunch. So something fairly drastic would have to occur in order, well, and or the party would have to just become more okay with murdering innocent people and or working with people who murder innocent people. Anyways, that was the first session, just a short little one-on-one session. Session the second. So the players had just completed a, well, at this point it was like 13 sessions long of an arc that had basically led up to this conclusion of defeating Larius Payne, who they have discovered is but a mere lieutenant, or not a lieutenant, an apprentice of the true big bad evil guy of this, at least at this point in the arc of the story they are in. And for this session, I didn't particularly have any individual plan or adventure thought out, but I wanted to figure out two things. This it was more so just going to be a session to just try to figure out what direction the players want to go in. So there were many, many plot lines that have opened up, at least three major plot lines to be like solved or figured out to some degree. And I definitely don't plan on introducing any new open plot lines until we start tying up some of these loose ends. Because now there's a lot of things for them to figure out and to pursue. I also wanted to give them a choice of their next base of operations to begin working out of. And I didn't want to keep them in this small little town of Borzu forever. And I know the traditional wisdom for the West Marches style campaign is to have one static town that can always be relied upon as a place to return to so that you always have a place to be safe in between your adventures. And because you never know like how much time is going to pass between this adventure and the next adventure you're going to have. So I wanted to make absolutely sure that by the end of this session they had a place they could be in that they could come back to. And so for this, we started off. They wanted to check in on those dwarven artisans to reclaim or to claim the magic items and or masterpieces that were promised to them. On their way there, they were attacked by a war troll, a member of a mercenary company. And this was a quick little glimpse into one of the possible options that they could pursue regarding their new base of operations. They've just Cletus gleaned a little more about his backstory. He has found out that his ancestral home was conquered or occupied by these war trolls, this mercenary company of somewhat intelligent trolls that are capable of using arms and armor. And so I didn't have the dungeon, the adventure planned out for this session, but I wanted to let Cletus know that it something he could pursue is going back to his homeland and reconquering his ancient dwarven hold, which is like a possible, if they clear it out, could become their new base of operations to work out of. But that one is definitely going to require a lot of work and preparation in order to see through. So that's one of the plot lines that has been opened up, is dealing with these war trolls. So they killed this troll on the road, and they got to Kerndarum, where they met once again with the dwarves. I should mention, Hilgar, we have decided, was one of those artisans who has in fact decided to hone his skills of fighting and has stayed with the party. He is a dwarven rogue. And the masterworks, though, Cletus and Adrian got masterwork rapiers, two twin blades that perfectly fit alongside with each other. Meng acquired a great mace for her to wield, and Humdu was given tattoos that improves his striking, and well, Hilgar is holding on to the masterwork crossbow that was promised for Nimbus, and there is a stick, a runic stick that improves spell casting for Darkwaffles, that I'm going to presume Cletus is holding on to at the moment until he once again meets with Darkwaffles. And they come back, so they decide, okay, well, let's head to this to the Borlemont Hills where the hold is and figure out what's going on with this troll situation. On the way back, this is when they are first met with the existence of this corpse weaver, who has informed them that he is going to kill everyone in this town unless they hand over these people that was responsible for the death of the apprentice. Now, the Count has sort of given the players one opportunity to leave their town and hopefully play dumb to the corpse weaver and say that they never even had the chance to turn these people over. And it was at this point that originally I was going to have the corpse weaver appear and the players were going to encounter him, and I was going to use this as an opportunity to just show how powerful he really is and scare the players. The corpse weaver was going to summon some wraiths, and it was going to start off being a combat that was going to seem effectively impossible for the players to win. And then an ally was going to show up and give the players the opportunity to escape with their lives. But the way that the players were speaking of dealing with this corpse weaver, I started to more so get the feeling that if the corpse weaver was going to show up, that it was likely that they might have ended up getting killed in an attempt to fight him, especially with when this ally shows up. I was worried that that might have been interpreted by the players of, oh, well, this is our chance. Now that we've got you on our side fighting alongside us, now we can really defeat him. And I didn't want the corpse weaver to just kill everyone immediately. So I decided to push that encounter off to a future date. As for running the corpse weaver himself, I was considering giving control of the corpse weaver to my brother so that he could always make the best and most logical uh, thought out plans instead of just having me act using the corpse weaver to make things convenient for the plot and the story, but instead truly have the corpse weaver act as intelligently as a real individual in this circumstance possibly could. But as I need to find the right balance of allowing that to happen because I think it would be very fun and very cool. But as it stands right now, I don't see how this outcome would be anything other than the players being chased down into a ravine using wraiths and then uh, flanked upon by both sides by skeletons with spears, and then a zombie dragon is kept overhead to make sure no one escapes. And then Corpse Weaver shows up from behind, Cloud kills all of them, and just giving them zero chance to get out of that situation. Which is what I imagine my brother would probably, as soon as I basically tell him, these are the resources you have at your disposal, and this is your current list of goals that you want to accomplish. I can't imagine that, well, dealing with these meddlesome adventurers that are just been responsible for killing your apprentice wouldn't be at near the top of his list, and he wouldn't just use these resources to his their absolute maximum to just slaughter all of them. So my current idea for how if I want to make this work, is that the corpse weaver will have multiple lieutenants working under him, and basically they would be evil, sort of power hungry conqueror types, and he would have to spend the majority of his time and resources making sure that they aren't fighting amongst each other and killing each other, and making sure that they are all acting in his best interest. But I haven't figured out 100% how I want to do that, but it is something I plan on implementing in the future. Okay, the players, I could tell because there wasn't a whole lot planned for this session. It was more so just a, okay, guys, let's figure out where we're going to go from here kind of session. It was a relatively slow session. There was a lot of talking, not a lot of anything happening. So a bunch of players just started to decide to draw cards from the deck of many things, which I'm totally fine with because that's kind of why I put the deck of many things in their possession, because I knew, like, look, if things ever start to slow down, if things ever get boring and you just want things to start happening, just start drawing cards. So it very much so served its purpose. And absolutely amazingly, they drew, I think everyone except for Cletus drew a card, and they all managed to be positive, which is, yeah, truly like outstanding because it is a even split. At least with my version of the deck of many things, it is an even split of 11 bad things that can happen and 11 good things. And the good things are amazing. Like, they are like permanent bonuses. Oh, I guess maybe I shouldn't say permanent, or powerful magic items, all the way up to wishes, which I don't know how much more powerful of an advantage could be given to a player. But the worst of the worst things are just gonna instantly remove your character from the story. So it is the greatest risk you could make. It's honestly, even if they walked up to the corpse monger and just said like, "Hey, I'm gonna fight you and challenge you one on one," even that I would say is less risky than the deck of many things because at least, okay, maybe I shouldn't say that, but the worst outcome, I guess, you get killed by the corpse weaver and he probably brings you back to life as a ghost or zombie or something. So honestly, never mind. I take that back. That definitely would be much worse. But at least there's the chance that you only get taken prisoner or maybe you get killed and you can be revived later. But deck of many things, you draw a card and then you're just encased in a magical gem, literally multiple planes of existence away from your party. And there's no, yeah, you would, yeah, like even the wish spell I think is only capable of figuring out like where it is, and I don't even think it rescues them. I don't think it's capable of that from the getting locked in a gem card. But Hilgar managed to get blessed with wings, which is pretty cool. I don't think Hilgar is probably going to be present for many future sessions, so the like horrific, like limiting, like limited design space that comes from a player that has now just gained permanent free flight, hopefully won't make a huge impact on the rest of what happens in the story. Just because like things like dungeons or anything along those lines becomes wildly different when your players can just ignore any physical barrier or obstacle in their way. Umdu drew the card of strength, blessing him with a +2 to his constitution save for an entire year. So I guess I'll have to remember on this day, the 17th of next year, he will lose that ability if Umdu is still around and fighting. Meng drew a wish card. Now, this is by far the most interesting development that has occurred from the deck of many things, at least narratively wise. And Adrian had drawn the card of stars and was given a relatively powerful magic ring that just gave a plus straight flat +2 to dexterity. And at the point that this happened, he had the Orison Oriflamme, which prevented him from attuning to any other items. So he graciously allowed Meng to hold on to the ring until, I guess, it was not made explicitly clear until such time that that would no longer be the condition, which has led to Meng refusing to give the ring back upon Adrian returning the banner to this Duke. Uh, and this has definitely led to some tension in the group between Meng and Adrian. Because, well, to be fair, Adrian has gotten quite shafted in this situation. He has lost his main magic item and then has lost his sort of relatively on the level of everyone else's magic items item. and and he has gone as far as to considering drugging and or poisoning Meng in an attempt to get the ring back, which I by no means blame him. I would be quite upset myself if someone had stolen my magic item. And this now I've got two perspectives that I'm looking at this situation from. One is as a friend among friends who wants to see everyone here remain friends. And so from that perspective, I I want these people to get along, and I don't want this to balloon out of proportion and lead to Adrian straight up like killing Meng, and or Meng using their wish card to just bloop Adrian out of existence. And but I do think with that wish card, it is, well, maybe become close to an even match. That Adrian is a much higher level than Meng, and Adrian already has better connections with people in higher positions than Meng does. But it's hard to beat a wish. That is just quite powerful. From the other perspective, from the from the audience member who is sitting alongside this game as a fellow player who wants to see this story unfold, and I find it very dramatically enticing because when it comes to the big bad evil guy, the I think everyone sitting at the table knows to some extent that there's a very good chance that as long as you're persistent and as long as you're relatively smart about the decisions you make, as long as you don't commit to any horrific mistakes, and as long as you like work in your best ability given the means that you have available to you, it's likely you're eventually going to overcome the big bad evil guy. Like we've all seen a million stories and we all know that's going to be the way it works out. But with this character versus character confrontation, I as the DM have no idea where that could, where that's going to end up going. And that's just a much more dramatically, that is just a much higher tension question, as the like a much more interesting dramatic question when you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Like, is at some point this going to escalate and escalate until Adrian wants to kill Meng, and or is Meng going to reach the point where they want to wish Adrian out of existence? Is this going to become a Captain America Marvel Civil War? Will people start taking sides in this situation? And I think if they want to resolve this situation before they resolve the Corpse Weaver, then I think it would be relatively easily for everyone to forget and forgive and to come to the understanding like, look, we're both being hunted down and killed by, or at least attempted to be hunted down and presumably captured and hopefully killed by this mega powerful necromancer. We can't afford to be fighting against each other. We need to work together. But if they do deal with the corpse weaver, then they wrap back around to this and they say like, well, look, now we don't have this corpse weaver to deal with. Like, give me that ring or else I'm going to kill you. That's interesting. Uh now yeah, so I think from what I plan on doing is possibly the socially irresponsible direction of washing my hands of it, sort of leaning back and saying whatever happens happens. I'm going to let you guys figure out how this goes down. Now, as for the place they're going to be staying, I had two explicitly obvious choices. This was basically so they have acquired this banner that two groups very much so want. There is the Duke, who has been holding on to it for the past 30 plus years in his basilica, in his like giant church to Amar, where he has been praising it as this like ancient relic. And there are the elves, to whom the banner rightfully belongs. I guess depending on your, well, yes, yeah, to them because they are the ones who crafted it and created it, and it is of their people, and they believe it should be with them. I suppose the humans' argument would be that they failed to protect it, to give it the proper security that it deserves. Well, anyways, so they could stay in the ancient elven hidden grotto, or they could be in this giant palace chateau with giant stone walls of the Duke. And they had chosen to stay with the Duke. I think primarily this is because the elves were being led by Nindalad, the father of the Lady Arwen, that and Adrian has got something of a confrontational relationship with this father. So I it makes sense to me why they've chosen the Duke, because I didn't have any positive nor negative relationship as of up to this point. And so they decided to stay with the Duke, and they want to scry of the whereabouts of the corpse weaver. So they speak to the court wizards, or to the Duke's court wizard, who is a gnome master of illusions named Grizzletick, who had attempted to divine the location of the corpse weaver for them. In doing so, he horribly miscast and instead accidentally summoned an imp from hell. This imp's name, Corbel. Oh, yeah, there have been many, many, many NPCs and a lot of names that have been introduced to this session. Some more information for me to forget in future sessions. I think a lot of NPCs might have to start dying really soon in order for me to be able to keep track of all of them. So Corbel the Imp, they had about like a 40-minute long conversation with him, trying to convince him to swear his servitude to these players, and the imp kept refusing. Eventually, this had ended up with the imp drawing a card from the deck of many things. Oh, something I forgot about Grizzletick. Umdu insulted Grizzletick a lot, which has ended up with uh, Grizzletick disliking uh, Humdu. There was a lot of insulting, a lot of uh, harsh words being spoken against his magical abilities after this failing of this scrying spell. And Grizzletick, being the gnomish prankster that he is, I'm almost certain is going to pull some illusory shenanigans against Humdu when he finds it most comedically appropriate. So this Corbel the Imp drew a card from the deck of many things, and he drew the Fool, which causes you to lose a level. And Corbel is already like a the equivalent of a level 1 creature. He is just an like a small little demon dude, and losing a level would bring him to 0, which I suppose for like a level 1 character might make them into like just a regular commoner. But the imps, they have the ability to transform, like polymorph themselves into a rat, so they can do spying. So I decided that the effect of this card was just to permanently make him into a rat, who has since decided to join Humdu, and just he figured life on the material plane as a rat, I suppose, better than being in hell as an imp. I imagine that's probably got to be close. So the imp, before he transformed, he had informed the players that they were led astray by the declaration of the pit fiend that had come into the world, who is in fact a fake, who is merely trying to attempt to become a prince of hell. Uh, and he is in fact named Skazkizkin, the Bitter Eater, and that he is currently claimed the barony of Torzon Savoy. And this was the same barony that was promised to Adrian Queenstone should he return the banner, which he did. So he is now, at least in the eyes of Igolian law, among the the deeds of the highest ruler of this realm. He is now considered the baron of this town that is now being run by a demon, which that was another potential option of a possible uh, base of operations that the players could take. And him being a baron to this duke, he like he would swear vassalage, but he would be under the duke's protection, so he would at least be afforded some amount of an assurance that this corpse weaver wouldn't just swoop in and immediately kill him. Also, I imagine there would probably be an extended amount of time that Adrian just remains in the chateau of the Duke, while I imagine there's probably not going to be a whole lot left standing, at least that would be useful for humans to live in when they finally do get back to this barony. And they created a plan to blackmail this pit fiend by threatening him with their new wish card that they had just acquired. And I don't know if this plan, the more I think about it, the more flaws I see with it. On the one hand, I do like the idea of the players acquiring the help of this pit fiend against the corpse weaver, because I do think that would be really cool to have, a giant demon fighting alongside you. That would be quite awesome to be able to, have as an experience as a player. But logistically, just as a part of this game, if they were to successfully get this pit fiend under their control and just be able to fight their battles for them, then for however many sessions that they have this pit fiend, any combat that they are a part of is going to become trivialized, at least whatever they are doing in that combat compared to whatever this pit fiend is doing. So the pit fiend would either have to be around for a relatively short amount of time, which, to be fair, he is he does have a stat block and hit points, and enough skeletons can shoot him with arrows that he will eventually just die, and or his equivalent of demon dying, which I imagine is returning to hell. And so if the players are threatening to either banish him back to hell or forcing him to fight until he is reduced to a point that he gets sent back to hell, the outcome is the same either way for him. So I think he would more so. I do think that this would require the usage of the wish spell to actually have this demon under your control. Alternatively, it could be a situation where the corpse weaver and this demon both want to be the evil conqueror of this area, and an area can only have one evil conqueror, so it could stand to reason that the demon would want to fight the corpse weaver for that reason, that he wants to take over more of this realm. um so but that would more so just require diplomacy with this pit fiend and genuinely working alongside with it, and not just taking control of it, which is probably evil because that demon is there's no way for the general local populace that is around that there's any way that any amount of a demon being present is not just horrific for them. Just with the amount of sacrifices that are going to happen to keep this demon around, and or him bringing other demons or devils into the world that are going to run around and cause chaos, and it's like a demon is just a very difficult thing to work alongside of. It is definitely a highly volatile type of ally to work with, which again I think is very interesting, and I do think it would be quite cool for the players to be working alongside this fiend, and it seems like that is where next session is going, is them going to this barony, and I don't know exactly what's gonna go down once they're there, because if they end up fighting this thing, then it's likely none of them make it out alive. And but they always just have this wish that can pretty much fix anything if it goes horribly, horribly wrong. So I do think that get out of jail free card is ultimately a good thing to have, because it allows the players to just take way greater risks and try things that they normally would never otherwise attempt. But I know this player has got some plan for this wish that they want to use it on, and you know they don't want to use it on the pit fiend, and because of that, I think they might have to figure out some other plan to get this pit fiend to fight alongside them. And to finish off the session, everyone just wanted to play a little longer, so I had them run across an Eigoling, a turn-skin servant of Eigol. This character's name was Leroy, a the progenitor of the style that Humdu and his monks, the Imperial Phoenix Claw style, the way that they fight. And he had informed them of this rock, and that to become deemed a master of the style, you need to defeat one of these rocks. And Umdu went up there with his friends, not trying to become a master just quite yet, and they fought it. And the reason Hamdu wanted to find this rock was to acquire a bit of its flesh to eat and consume, so that he can now attune to his vulture magic item, his Shroud de la Vauture. And this hunt had ultimately gone quite horrific. The Now the rock is a CR11 monster, which means traditionally I believe it is fit like an appropriate medium challenge for a party of 4 level 11 adventurers. And that we had one level 6 or no, we had 2 level 6 characters, and then like a level 5. Actually no, I think we had 3 level 6 characters now. Anyways, they're the best players here are like half the level that would otherwise be appropriate for fighting a rock. So it demolished them. They had gone down multiple times. They barely even took a chunk out of its health, which, on the one hand, usually teaming up on a big monster, you've got the action economy behind you, so you can just like really beat it up. And if you have any stunning anythings, I think where the problem came up is they had zero like wizards or spellcasters that could just start stacking any sort of like negative condition on this rock that is normally what really makes these like one-on-4 situations just entirely impossible to defend against. Also, didn't help that the rock could fly. So for at least half the battle, the majority of these melee based characters could not do anything against it. So, but Humdu did manage to get a bite out of it after going down twice, and Cletus also going down. And uh, and thinking back on hindsight, I would have been funny if I made him contract salmonella or something from eating that raw bird without cooking it or anything. But I didn't think that far ahead. And they managed to get out of there with their lives because this rock had like this nest of eggs that it was trying to protect from these adventurers. And that's where we wrapped up the session. They got out of there successfully. No one managed to die, but it started getting dangerously close that if they had stayed there for even a single additional turn, the death spiral would have began, where once you have more players start going down than you have players that are still up, and they're just all prone and all sitting down, and they're all just lying there. Then they just start getting picked off. And once that downward spiral begins to happen, there's no coming back. And there's no worse feeling than just looking around the table with a bunch of your friends that are all downed and dying, and just the next 5 minutes spent just having this creature slowly kill each of you one by one. But they did manage to flee. It's possible they will come back in the future. Maybe they'll bring a ballista or something. But as it stands, they don't necessarily have any reason to want to fight this rock unless, uh, I suppose specifically Humdu might eventually want to become a master. But he's still, in the grand scheme of things, relatively early on in his career. Master, that's where like you end. Once you become a master, then you just sit in your monastery all day and training other schmucks to become great fighters. But that is it. There a whole lot happened this last session. I'm very excited to start resolving some of these plots next time. All right, I'll see you later.